Hi class, welcome. We are going to go over the introduction to the book Critical Thinking, Tools for Taking Charge of Your Learning and Your Life. They start with a great startup definition for critical thinking, and it says, critical thinking is the art of thinking about thinking while thinking to make thinking better. It involves three interwoven phases. It analyzes thinking, it evaluates thinking, and it improves thinking. While this is a little comical up here, mentioning thinking so many times, the second part of this is really valuable. You can see that you will be analyzing thinking, evaluating thinking, and improving thinking. So you're kind of taking it apart and looking at it, deciding what's good and what's bad, and then making those needed improvements. However, we first need to realize, are we willing to do what it takes? This is not going to be easy. Look at all the things that are involved in critical thinking, in examining your thinking. First, are you willing to, as we just said, examine your own thinking? Are you willing to put it to some very stern tests? These are not very comfortable, guys. Are you willing to take apart your thinking, to identify weaknesses in your thinking? Not fun to do. Are you willing to creatively reconstruct your thinking and to overcome the natural tendency of the mind to be rigid? Our minds want to be rigid. Our minds work very well in the same pattern over and over. As a matter of fact, that's probably the very best way we learn, is by repeating something over and over. So it's hard to come out of that. And are you willing to overcome your natural tendency to validate your own thoughts rather than improve your own thoughts? It's really hard to do. We would rather validate than improve anytime. Well, let's get started. First question first. Have you ever thought about your thinking? Obviously, this is something that leaves some of us rather confused. Metacognition is thinking about your thinking. It's not thinking about necessarily the issue or the problem or whatever, but thinking about how you go about thinking about that problem. And that's what we're going to do with our critical thinking. We're going to think, just how do our minds work? How do we go about thinking? However, this takes a lot of hard work. This may be the face you're making as you start to realize how much hard work this is. It is the systematic monitoring. Systematic means there is a system in place, and you're going to do it over and over again. The systematic monitoring of thought with the goal of course, improvement. Thinking must not be accepted at face value. We can no longer just say, oh, this is what I think, and that's how it is. That's not going to work for critical thinking. Your thinking has to be analyzed and assessed. So we analyze by taking it apart. We assess it. When you assess something, it's kind of like you grade it. Is it wonderful? Is it okay? Or is it horrible? We're going to assess it for clarity. Is it very clear? Is it accurate? You'd be surprised how much that we think we know that is actually inaccurate. Is it relevant? In other words, if we're going to bring this up, is it relevant to our problem, to our issue, to our idea? Does it have depth and breadth? In other words, is that really deep thinking? And logicalness, always a good one. We must recognize that all reasoning occurs within points of view and frames of reference. In other words, your point of view and your frame of reference is going to be very different from somebody else's. So while it may be correct to you, it's not going to be correct to someone else. That all reasoning proceeds from some goals and objectives and has an informational base. Again, our informational base may be different from someone else's informational base. Same with goals and objectives. That all data, when used in reasoning, must be interpreted. You know what? People love to throw around data, but you really have to be careful and really interpret your data. That means going all the way back, if you're looking at a research study, all the way back to the methodology. How did they go about doing it? How did they collect this? Who did they use? So on and so forth. That interpretation involves concepts, that concepts entail assumptions, and that all basic inferences in thought have implications. So you've got overreaching concepts that entail assumptions. If you have a concept, you're going to assume certain things under that particular concept, under that particular way of thinking. You're going to make assumptions. And again, if someone else is approaching it differently, their assumptions are going to be different from yours. And inferences are when you draw conclusions about things. All basic inferences in thought have implications. So if you are inferring something or you've drawn a conclusion about that, there are implications that come along with that conclusion that you drew. And this may cause you to be like, oh man, I had no idea it's all this involved. But as you can see, you're no longer going to be able to just read something, hear something, or state something without first putting it through some rigorous tests and some very deep thinking, analyzing, and evaluating. Guys, it's time to take charge of your thinking. I know you can do it. If we go after it in attack mode like this, you will be very successful. Please go ahead, and if you have not read the chapter, please be sure to read the introductory chapter. You may need to go ahead and download the whole book. To do that, it's for some reason not pulling up right now, but go ahead and pull it down, read over that chapter, and then feel free to start discussing. Thanks, class. Have a great day.